afternoon. Tomorrow night, partly cloudy. Those will drop down to about 25 to 30. The outlook for Saturday will have a mixture of clouds and sunshine, and a high anywhere from 40 to 45. I'm meteorologist Rob Carolyn.
Next on AM 1480 WLEA, the Newsmaker Show. Here's Brian O'Neill.
And on our Newsmaker live line this morning, Steuben County Manager Jack Wheeler. Jack Wheeler, thanks for coming on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Brian, as always.
Well, let's start out with the coronavirus. Rochester media outlets, and we just reported on the announcement from the Monroe County Health Department that somebody there has it. No confirmed cases yet in Steuben County. Am I correct, Jack?
That is correct. No confirmed cases in Steuben.
Would you be able to say if anybody has been tested for it?
No. So the testing protocols, as I'm sure you've heard, some of the difficulties across the state and across the nation. We're facing shortages in testing kits. So to my knowledge, no one has formally been tested. We have had some voluntary isolations from people traveling back from affected countries, such as China and Italy. Our public health nurses monitor them. Thankfully, no one's symptomatic, so it looks under control at the moment. But now is the time to plan. I mean, as you just mentioned, the fact that it's in Monroe County is a lot closer to home than downstate. So we've used the past about 2 months to really get our ducks in a row and plan for if and probably when it does hit Steuben County.
Okay. Talking with Steuben County Manager Jack Wheeler. We have a statement here from last week. It says Steuben County legislators joined state lawmakers in a united protest against Governor Andrew Cuomo's plan to shift Medicaid costs back onto county taxpayers. It says under the plan, New York State would absorb the federal medical assistance percentages funds that counties now receive, and also force counties, the state would, to pay any Medicaid expenses in excess of the state's budgeted Medicaid caps, and penalize any counties if additional costs forced local budgets to exceed their state-enforced property tax caps. Your thoughts, Jack Wheeler?
Yeah, it's a very difficult issue. It's one that we thought had been resolved. Obviously, we have a number of issues from Albany every year during their budget process with additional responsibilities and costs passed down to localities, cities, towns, villages, and especially counties. We are a service arm of the state, so we do provide a lot of services on their behalf, and that's fine and it works, but the goal is to have them pay for it. Back in 2012, the governor, to his credit, capped our Medicaid cost. It was the Medicaid cap freeze, he called it. And he said, here's your mandate relief, and it's significant, millions of dollars in our case. And we were very thankful for that. It helped us manage our budget much easier. But what he's proposing now essentially undoes all of that.
Jack Wheeler, your statement continued to say the counties are not to blame for the Medicaid deficit. It's a shell game and a deficit wholly created by the state. But the good news, everyone in the state is against it. Everyone has both upstate and downstate united like nothing else. The statement continues, Steuben and other counties across New York State have no choice in what Medicaid services are provided in the state's program, which include nearly all the 28 optional services, including what's mandated. Jack Wheeler, your thoughts there?
New York State is really the ones that set the rules, and that is the largest issue that we're facing is, decades ago in the 60s when Medicaid started, the state and New York being one of the only states in the nation decided to have counties pay half of their costs for the Medicaid program. Over the decades since, the costs have just exploded. They're the ones who set the rules. They make the eligibility requirements. They're the ones who choose those optional services that you mentioned. Most states don't have near as many as us. They're also the ones who have the contracts for transportation, for pharmaceuticals, for the Medicaid services. We do have staff locally that have an important job to enroll people in Medicaid, but we can't deviate from the state standards. So, our message in the end is pretty simple, that the level of government that sets the rules should be the one that pays for it and not pass the costs on locally.
On the air this morning, Steuben County Manager Jack Wheeler. The budget reduction scheme, is some are calling it. Do you have a sense of how much that would cost the county taxpayers?
Sure. So our estimate for the two parts that you mentioned, the enhanced federal assistance that we receive under the Affordable Care Act, because New York pays or provides a higher level of service. We do under Medicaid, we do receive about $1.6 million locally. In that, the governor is proposing to intercept that and said that should be state money. We completely disagree. That's 1.6 right there. The other part is the 3% essentially cap. Anything over 3%, if Medicaid costs grow locally over 3%, we would have to pay that overrun. Our estimate in the first year is $1.5 million. So add them both together, you're talking about $3 million, which would be a 6% tax increase. Obviously, very, very concerning. And the other part, Brian, is the fact that Medicaid costs, again, which we don't control their growth, we don't set the rules of the additional reimbursements to the providers, the minimum wage paid to the providers, and that's all good if the state pays for that, but we don't control those things. We have seen in recent years our Medicaid costs grow by 10%. It's never in recent years been 3%. So he's setting us up for failure. 3% is not attainable. So you're looking at about a $3 million impact in the first instance.
Now, did you say a 3% tax increase there a couple of moments ago, or a 6% tax increase for the average Steuben County taxpayer?
6%. So $3 million, and sorry if I misspoke, $3 million additional cost, which equates to about a 6% tax increase, and that's about $47 on, an average assessed value of a $100,000 home or property. The other reality, Brian, is that if that doesn't work, and obviously our legislators aren't just going to sit by and just pass those costs on, hard decisions have to be made on local services. And the local services, the ones that we have control over, are the ones that the residents, I think, rely upon the most and, really look to the county to provide. And that's, paving and upkeeping roads, that's services for the aging, that's youth services, things like that. I'm certainly not the doom and gloom in saying that we're not going to provide those, but those are the tough choices that have to be made if these costs are passed on to us.
Talking to Steuben County Manager Jack Wheeler. And you talked about how the governor promised back in 2012 that the state would take care of the local share of Medicaid, and that was in exchange for the 2% property tax cap. Wondering, Jack Wheeler, your thoughts on the kind of thing that Assemblyman Phil Palmisano makes a lot of points on, he says repeatedly that Governor Andrew Cuomo has not helped in most cases on the issue of mandate relief. Do you find that you agree with the Assemblyman on that one?
Definitely do. And Assemblyman Palmisano, all of our assembly folks in the county, Senator O'Mara, they're all in lockstep with us on this issue. We agree. We're seeing more mandates. The message that we got since 2012 from the governor's office has been, you have your mandate relief in the form of the property tax freeze. And for a county, it's tough to argue because, right there you're talking, baseline $3 million. So we're grateful for that. That's not enough in our view. We've talked about, and I know you've talked to the sheriff and the district, changes in criminal justice reform, not speaking on the policy level, but on the cost level. That passed on a significant amount of cost to Steuben County, about $400,000 of additional cost for changing from 2019 to 2020. So there are real impacts. So we would absolutely agree with our Assembly and Senate representatives.
Jack Wheeler, will the GOP lawmakers upstate be able to fight this successfully now that they're in the minority and the New York City downstate Democrats are kind of pushing everything they want through? What's your sense of that?
Well, so for Medicaid, Brian, this is actually, in the 12 years that I've been here, probably one of the only issues I've ever seen that has united downstate Democrats and upstate Republicans, because they all represent localities that have a significant Medicaid cost. The city of New York is facing over $1 billion in additional cost because they also share in the cost of Medicaid. So it impacts New York City, it impacts all 57 other counties. So from what we're hearing, we're very encouraged by lawmakers. Obviously, we reach out to both sides, to both sides of the aisle, all the way up the chain to as far as we can get. And, they are very sympathetic because they know that it will cost the city of New York and the 57 counties a significant amount of money. I mean, the governor in his budget forecast budgeted $150 million in this kind of recoupment from counties in the city of New York, but we think that is way underestimated. We think the actual cost is well over $1 billion.
Going to take a quick break. We'll be back in just a moment with Steuben County Manager Jack Wheeler. Stay with us.
The Ryan Agencies, your local independent insurance agencies. At the Ryan Agency, they work hard to find the right coverage at the best rate. Their agents shop more than 24 insurance companies to discover your best price. Save smart. Contact the Ryan Agencies today for your best price.
Insurance protection you can rely on. The Ryan Agency.
Balance of Nature. Changing the world, one life at a time.
I went to have my blood test done a few weeks ago, and I met the doctor, and he was really encouraged by my progress. I brought him the 2 bottles, and I showed him what I was taking, and he started looking at all the ingredients. He said, "You may be onto something here." And I'm like, "Oh, wow." And he said, "You just keep that up. You're helping your health by doing that." And I'm like, "Whoa, endorsement by the doctor."
Don't wait to see what getting over 10 servings of whole fruits and vegetables every day can do for you. Right now, Balance of Nature is offering free shipping and 35% off on any new preferred order of fruits and veggies. Start your journey to better health today by calling 1-800-2468-751 or by going to balanceofnature.com and make sure to receive this special radio offer by using discount code FRUITS.
Checking in now with meteorologist Rob Carolyn, who says it's going to be a sunny weekend.
Yes, but a cool weekend, Brian. We're going to get high pressure to build its way towards us from the Dakotas, where temperatures are going to be very close to zero later tonight. Now, we're not going to be that cold, but if they're going to be below normal, we're going to be below normal over the weekend. Out ahead of this system, though, we've got a fair amount of cloudiness and some mild weather. We'll have more clouds than we do sunshine today. Temperatures are going to be very close to 55 degrees this afternoon. Sunrise this morning was at 7:25. The sun will set tonight at 7:14. Looks like rain heads our way overnight. We're breezy and we stay mild. Winds out of the south and southwest. Nighttime lows on the order of 45 to 50. That's warmer than we're supposed to be during the day this time of year. Tomorrow the rain will end in the morning. It'll turn partly sunny, breezy for the afternoon. Nice and warm tomorrow. Highs are somewhere between 50 and 55. Tomorrow night partly cloudy, turning colder, 25 to 30. We'll have partial sun Saturday. We're 40 to 45. And then Brian, the cold air really starts to move in for Sunday. Lots of sun, but a high of only 35 to 40.
Back with Steuben County Manager Jack Wheeler. And to bring up an issue, Jack Wheeler, that you mentioned in the last segment about criminal justice reforms, just on the county, the open government website here, which I was linked to from the county website, talking about the cost, and you had mentioned the number $400,000 in the last segment for the cost of the new criminal justice reforms. Wondering, what are you hearing from law enforcement, the Steuben County Sheriff, Jim Allard, as far as how the reforms are affecting law enforcement at the county level?
Yeah, it's a good question. It certainly has changed the landscape. The cashless bail and some of the other things. It certainly is changing the way that law enforcement have to operate in the field, and certainly the way that the courts have to function. Again, not arguing the goods or the bads of the policy impact or of the policy statement. But it is certainly a challenge. We are seeing, from what I understand, additional warrants being issued. It has decreased our jail population, and what's frustrating is the governor said, well, the additional costs that you might have in law enforcement or the district attorney will be made up by the decreased jail population. Well, that's just not true, because our jail is not. We can't reduce a corrections officer for every potential inmate that is not in the jail. We, just like all other jails, are in a pod setting, so we need to lose probably about 30 inmates to be able to close a pod and reduce staffing, and we haven't reduced staffing. So it's additional cost, it's additional burden. It's, I think the system is finding its way to set. I hope that, personally, not speaking for the legislature, but I hope personally that, some common sense reforms are implemented in this legislative session. It seems like both the governor and the legislature seems at least willing to provide additional judicial discretion, which I think would clean up a lot of the issues, because right now the judges' hands are tied in terms of who can be remanded with bail and who can't. So the judges who know their communities, know the crimes, I think should have more discretion, and hopefully cooler heads prevail in Albany.
Now, we talked at the beginning there about the coronavirus, and you'd mentioned that some people who'd been overseas and elsewhere had quarantined themselves. Wondering, Steuben County Manager Jack Wheeler, are there any other issues going on at the county level, issues that might come up at the legislative meeting in a couple of weeks?
Related to to coronavirus, there are some. It's a daily evolving thing. Obviously, our health department has done a fantastic job. They really have. Darlene Smith, who's our public health director, and her staff, putting in a ton of hours, getting education out. It's a balance. You want to, educate the public to make sure that they're taking this issue seriously, but also not spread fear. So I think they're doing a very good job with that. You're going to see a lot more communication coming from us today, tomorrow, as this has been declared a pandemic by the World Health Organization, and that actually formally changes some of the ways that our public health officials have to approach this. In close coordination with the state of New York as well. Their Department of Health provides a lot of guidance. I think you'll see, not just from Steuben County, all counties, I think schools and others, you're going to see a lot more guidance and communication, because this is a new thing. Our folks, the good news is, while the virus is new, our public health officials, have experience in dealing with communicable diseases. They have to deal with tuberculosis, measles, mumps. Obviously, those outbreaks, knock on wood, have been very minimal in Steuben County over the past few decades, but they're well trained. I think we're in the process and have been preparing for months. I think we're in a good place, but more to come on that, and you'll see more communication from us.
Okay, we'll be watching for that. And are there any other issues besides the ones that we've discussed that are that might be coming up at the county legislative meeting in a couple of weeks?
No, I think you covered it real well, Brian. I think it's a busy time. Most of the time, at least my office, this time of year, we're focused on the state budget and preparing ourselves for what's going to be coming down from Albany. You add COVID on top of it, and it just makes it makes for a hectic time. But that's what we're here for.
Okay. We've been talking with Steuben County Manager Jack Wheeler. Jack, I want to thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, thanks as always for having me, Brian.
It's AM 1480 WLEA Hornell. Stay with us. Brian Kilmeade Show coming up at 9.